You know what I'm
I
saying?
hear.
Just on their foolery. So what's the deal? So you're right. It's just so backwards to me.
Right. Yeah. You want to take us back? Okay, let's see how y'all gonna survive when we go
Okay,
backwards.
okay. They fail to
and
realize
and and
we know how to survive everything. We know how to survive.
Hmm.
and the big thing is, and this is the important thing is that they don't want us to keep our money in our neighborhoods. That's
No,
the key. They want us to suffer. So how do they do that? They make it that we have to go to them. Well, by separating, and that's different from segregation. Separation, saying, hey, you, like you said, you do. Someone said earlier, you do your thing, I do my thing, and we
right,
both, and we see who gets there. But the problem is every time that we do that, the dominant society comes and does something to try to set us back.
right.
For example, most famous example, Black Wall Street. You had um, they have a lot of areas that were destroyed or burned, and this is how we get past that and say, hey, we're not doing that anymore. That is not us.
Mhm.
That's not us. But what I'm gonna
Yeah, but see,
do,
now that they're trying to do, if they decided, and I'm just speaking out of my head per se, but if they try to sit there and burn what we got, like look at Mike Epps and Ti and Tiny, they bought communities. They bought communities. They're building up. So what you gonna do? Try to take that away? What you gonna do? Try to burn that down? Guess what? Them people gonna burn you back down. They're not gonna take it like they took it back in the day. You know what I'm saying? They're gonna fight for what's theirs, and we all gonna fight for what's ours. We're gonna be louder than we was before. We at that time had a tendency to hold things back and not say anything and do things under the table and secretly. That's not happening today. We are speaking loud and proud about what we have and what we're going to do. So they want to segregate or tell people that we can. Guess what? We're gonna build our own. We're gonna build our own. And then you try to take that. Guess what? We're gonna rebuild it, but we're gonna burn yours down.
that's kind of what they want us to do, so they can think that they're going to take over. Well, they're in charge, but like I said, they want to get a chance to get rid of us. But once they do that, the country as we know it is over anyway. So that's another story. Um, right now, I just want to do a quick reset. This is DFG. This is DFG's Corner with my co-host, the Chocolate Pearl, my favorite girl, and the lady that's sweet as Snapple, Miss Apple from New York City. I know that you were doing your thing, Miss Apple, but I'm gonna play this next clip. You won't be able to see it, but you'll hear it, and it's called "The Effects of Residential Segregation." Earlier, I had a video about the amount of wealth in certain parts of Delaware County. The flip side of that is Chester, the oldest city in Pennsylvania. Chester once had upwards of 65,000 people. However, after deindustrialization, its population halved to its current state of 32,000. The city is currently bankrupt. If you look at state rankings for measures such as education, crime, basically anything important, Chester is, let's just say, now ranked low. And when you factor in the fact that Chester is 8% black, people will jump to make comments disparaging the residents of the area. However, the forces behind this decline were explicitly racist in nature. The same forces of redlining and exclusionary zoning that created wealth in places like Swarthmore ultimately led to misery for marginalized communities like Chester. As the city became blacker, it also became increasingly shut off from positive private investment. Banks would not give out loans for home repair, essential businesses such as grocery stores refused to step shop, and many parts of the city fell into disarray. Chester suffered the disgusting fate that many predominantly black communities in our country do, as the federal government, large banks, and general public completely devalue us in our space. And many write on that. Chester needed money, so this paved the way for Lulu's or locally undesirable land uses to site by the river, where former factory used to be. That riverfront had everything from a prison to incinerators to a paper mill, basically everything that you could think of. And since trash is sent to Chester, others see the area as a dumping ground, and illegal dumping is a huge issue. Our country's racism allows large corporations, along with local and state governments, to spend trap on the community as pollutants lead to early deaths and discourage more productive economic outlets. However, Despite what seems to be a hopeless situation, many people in Chester continue to fight against the injustices they face, looking to pave a way for a brighter future. And just like Black people have been doing throughout our history in this country, we have retained agency and pressed forward against all odds. And I will talk about organization, the key organization doing that, and the work being done in the next video on this topic.
That was talking about segregation and how segregation affects us. We all know that if you want to growing up in the, most of us grew up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Industry was good back in the 70s. Everybody had jobs, but once they started moving jobs out of cities and into smaller towns, and where there wasn't labor, and this all dives into education and what's going on with the Department of Education. You get a lot of issues to where the land gets worse and worse, like they were saying. When we lived in New York, we were surrounded by factories. We had a power plant across the street. We had all kinds of factories, both clean and dirty. A lot of distributorships in New York City. We had a bread company across the street. If you ever heard of Silver Cup Studios in New York City, it used to be Silver Cup Bakery, and that's what it was in the 70s. They closed in the late Silver Cup. Yeah, they closed about 1979, and then about 1981 they became a movie studio. We had a lot of things, and over the years, a lot of that stuff would started closing. They started moving, and soon the property values especially in Black neighborhoods went way down. If you knew about the 70s and you heard about the Bronx and how they used to have burnt out buildings everywhere, that's not an exaggeration. On the block where my father's second oldest sister lived in the Bronx, we used to go up there all the time. She lived on the corner of Southern Boulevard and East 179th Street. And at one point, there was only one, their building was the only building on the entire block. That was crazy. They had burnt out buildings everywhere. People was living in squalor. It was a step up to move to be in the projects at that time. However, right now, we have a lot of issues to where we can't get past our own way, but it's not totally our fault, but we do have a lot to do with it when we're not teaching our kids right from wrong, when we're letting our kids raise themselves, when we step back and don't be the force for good in our communities that we need to be. But a lot of times what they're doing is corporations are buying up a lot of this property, this land, because they don't want people in general to own. They want to be able to rent so they can squeeze them for more money. It all goes in the school to prison pipeline, especially in Black areas. We get sent to prisons. The prisons get full. Then they have private prisons, so they're making money off of us there. And then guess what's legal if you're in prison? Slavery. So they can work you till your back get out. They could do a lot of those things. And these things kind of destabilize our neighborhood. But if it was to go to where we have our own, with our innovation, our cultivation, and our long dormant feeling of community will strengthen. And as we had after 20 years after slavery, 15 years after Jim Crow, we will come back stronger than ever. And then they're going to try to do that. But by that time, the dominant society will be a global minority. I mean, a minority in this country. And they're going to hate that because they think that we're going to try to treat them the way they treated us for 400 plus years. We don't care about that. We really don't care.
Not at all. Don't care nothing about that.
We wasn't looking for revenge. We just want justice and to be treated and to be treated as a full citizen of the United States of America, because we were born here, our parents were born here, our great parents. I said, on my mother's side, my family goes back to before the country was even a country. I could trace my roots back to 1615. Not many people can do that. Our people, although we're melanated, our people have never been enslaved in the United States. So that's saying something. It's not to brag. I'm just stating a fact. Apple, how's everything going on in New York City?
Everything's good. I'm sorry I'm
off?
late. No, I'm sorry. I'm
You know how
waiting
they
for
say
that. I'm
Canada's
waiting.
going to cut the pay
Yeah,
bill.
I'm waiting for that. When they said that, New York was one of the states that Canada controls the electricity, I was like, oh man, I'm gonna have to go move in with my brother or my sister.
Come on. You know you always welcome at both places.
3 days. 3 days.
And you go to him if you want to stay in the cold, and if you come to me if you just want to be on a lifetime vacation.
But yeah, those things that we actually have to do to get to where we all want to go, because we do want to be better than what we are today. We always want to prove our kids are the first generation that really did worse than us, because they can't, when they graduate high school, they can't just go get a decent paying job. So we were lucky that there were plentiful jobs and you really didn't need any college or
Right.
degree. That now
Exactly.
now to be a janitor, you have to have a PhD to be a custodial engineer.
You laughing about it, but it's almost the truth. I know I'm looking for employment, and it's hard. And only thing that's actually standing me up with finding positions is my experience background. That trumps most college educations for a lot of people. So now on the applications, they're asking, how many years of whatever that background is. And mine is in accounting. How many years you had in this, and how many years you had in that. And I can say 30 and 25 years. You know what I'm saying? But that's the experience that I had. If I didn't have that experience today, I wouldn't get anything. Shucks, nowadays you can't even flip a burger without a good old, at least 1 year of college.
Oh, I
Nowadays,
know. I know. Hey, Dabs, I know you're from the Pacific. You were from the Pacific Northwest. Now you're in the hot Southeast. When you were growing up, you probably lived on it. You lived in the Seattle area, so I know you probably lived on a hill. and what? How was that compared to where you're at now, as far as segregation, and not de jure the segregation, but de facto the segregation? Because there's certain areas you don't walk through at night. You don't walk through Renton at night if you're black and don't want to be in jail.
Yeah, that's true. There's I guess back then at that time, I mean, facing, from when I moved here, what was been 12 years ago now. So, I mean, I'm actually from a little bit smaller town than Seattle, but I went to school and lived in Seattle for a while. But majority of my time was spent in this town called Bremerton, which is very small. And yeah, it's one of those things.
Little League World Series champ 1982.
Oh yeah, okay. And then so we certain things that we knew we couldn't do. If we did, we had to hustle through town pretty quick, if it was in the evening times or whatever. Like you said, some certain parts of Seattle, hey, if you wasn't of the melanated color, you wouldn't roll through there. Like you said, Rainier, Rainier, it depended on what part of Rainier. So some of those parts, Capitol Hill, definitely not. If you was a brother, you better hurry up and get in the house if you lived in that area. So a lot of them didn't, but
right.
Yeah, it's things I've seen since high school. I mean, it was coming down here. I thought things was gonna be a little bit different. But I ran through some, situations where I didn't think it changed much. I deal with you know, the the job thing, a lot of that back home, especially in Bremerton where I live. You dealt with that because of color of your skin, you wasn't getting employment. It was a little more work, so
Oh,
yeah, where
I
we're
got
at.
a story. I got a story about my trip up. One of my trips in King County. Um,
Uh-oh.
I was in southwest Seattle, right on the border where between where it goes from Seattle to SeaTac,
Yep.
and there are a lot of Polynesians over there. I'll just leave it at that.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Going to one of the Hawaiian barbecue spots. I was hungry.
Oh yeah.
I was going to the wharf. I was going to the wharf to hang out, and I go to I'm at I'm in SeaTac, and I go in this Hawaiian barbecue place. I was the just put it this way, I was a black pearl in a sea of brown sugar,
Yep.
and this 6'1", 450-pound Polynesian guy comes up to me, is like, bruh, I think you're in the wrong place. And I looked, and it was about four of them behind him.
Uh-huh.
Looked like the offensive line for BYU. And I was like, yes, I am in the wrong place. I kindly got my rental
Yeah.
car, kept driving. But yeah, it's crazy that,